I've been having some difficulty in my RV with my television over-the-air antenna system. I've kind of done some spot checking, trying to fix the thing, and it just doesn't seem like I'm getting anywhere. It's been fighting me the entire way. So I've decided to just do a systematic check from basically top to bottom of the entire system, which includes all the coax cables and the antenna and the DC wiring and so on. The only solution I've got for when this thing is fighting me like this. Well, the first thing I'm going to use is this nifty little tool from Klein Tools, and it's called the Coax Explorer. It's about $11, I think, and it consists of two items. This, I guess you could call a transmitter, and you can probably call this a load. Now, they make a larger one that has 4 different loads, and they're different colors, and you can connect it up and do simultaneous cables, but for our purposes of an RV, this thing works fine. And the way this works is you have to use a barrel connector like I've got here on this end, and you install the load on one end of the coax. Now, this can be as short as a small little jumper cable like this, or this can be the cable going from, say, your distribution switch all the way to the TV in the back, or the TV outside, or the antenna up on the roof, or whatever. And then this end goes into here, and then simply you depress this little button on the unit, and a little LED will light up. Now, if it shows up green, that's good. If it shows up red, there's an open, and if it's orange, there's a short. So, yes, you can do this with a meter, with a ohm meter, and get the same results. But this is a little bit easier because even with an ohm meter, you have to go to the other end and short the end out to measure to see if you've got continuity. By shorting the end out, you put one lead on the ground, one lead on the center pin, one lead on the shield. You probably have done that, but anyway, so this makes it a little faster and easier. So I've done that, and all the connections have checked out. So, by the way, I said you can do the antenna with this as well, which is true. The antenna lead, I should say, the antenna coax. However, some antennas, a lot of antennas, have an amplifier built into the antenna, and in the coach there's a DC power supply, 12-volt supply, and what it actually does is it sends the DC voltage up to the antenna, to the amplifier, which is powered, and then the signal is sent down the coax. So the same coax you use for both the DC power connection and AC signal connection. This you really can't use until you turn the power off and disconnect both ends. So, in fact, in any situation, you have to disconnect both ends to be able to use this tester. Now, another neat little gadget I found, and this is a Holland Electronics Incorporated, I guess you call it a wrench. And basically what happens is these things sometimes get real difficult to tighten. And this simply goes over the coax and fits onto the collar. Here, it allows you to loosen or tighten the connector. So, especially, I've got a distribution box up there, and all the connectors are real close together, so they're really hard to get your fingers in there. And so by just using this tool here, it's going to be a lot easier just to open or close it. Here's an example of using this little wrench that I've got. Here's my distribution panel, and I need to connect a coax to one of these antennas, and I want to go from this TV here. So unfortunately, this will not work on these molded ones, but it will work on the type you install. So what we're going to do is put a connection to here. Now I got this turned over, but normally you'd have this in the back, and when it's in the back it can be very difficult to see what you're doing. So once you just basically get it started, you can just slip this over and just tighten it down, just like that. And that tightens them pretty successfully. The third item is, and I'll show another demo for this. This is made by King Controls, and it's called Jack Sherlock Digital TV Signal Finder. Essentially what it is just a signal strength meter, and what I'll end up doing with this is once I've tested all the coax out for DC connectivity, then I will connect this to the end of the coax on the opposite end of the antenna, and then there's some set of looks like 4 LEDs here that will tell me what the signal strength is. That way I can tell if the antenna is working or if it's not working. Now the signal strength can vary. Unless I were to plug an oscillator into the coax, I wouldn't get a sure signal, but the signal strength can vary on this device simply because it's reading the signal strength from the antenna, that the broadcast station that it's picking up. So, you know, you may find in a particular situation that the signal strength is not as strong as you expect it, but if you take and turn the antenna, if you're in an area where there are some antennas, if you turn the antenna for the strongest signal while you're ringing out your coaxes and trying to troubleshoot your system, then you know you're going to get the maximum signal here. And not only will this aid in ringing out your coax system and find out if your antenna works, but once you've determined it's okay, you can keep this in your coach, and you can use this to basically turn the direction of the antenna to the strongest signal whenever you get to wherever you're going. So, you know, not only is this useful in troubleshooting, but it is also useful for setting up your antenna. And in fact, that's what its real purpose is. Point the antenna in the direction of the strongest signal, and we're just using this for troubleshooting purposes. So on the website I'll put sources to all of these items in case you're interested in where I got them, and maybe this will take some of the frustration out of doing any work on your coach with the coax wiring.